Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It is class number 2 of our open house. Oop. Welcome back. It is class number 2. There we go. There we go. Let me get rid of that echo. Sorry, guys. Only the second class. Still getting used to it. So I have a very special guest today. Very excited. Lycia Evanoff, who is the owner of Cult by Design. She is a craft blogger and instructor. And today she is going to be talking about creating projects with Sublimation Stamp Pad. So hello, Lycia. How are you?
I'm good, Sprite. How are you?
I am doing very good, very, very good. And I'm excited about this class because not only are you going to be doing some incredibly fun things, I'm always just so impressed with the Artistry line, but also one lucky winner is going to receive a full set of stamp pads, the full set of ink refills, and a full set of paints. So I'm very, very excited. So with all that being said, Lycia, go ahead and take it away.
All right. Thank you.
Wait, there we go. Now you can take it away.
All right. Well, I am really excited to be here and to share with y'all about the Artistry stamp pads and inks. If you're not familiar with Artistry, they have taken sublimation ink and put it in a form that crafters can use without a sublimation printer. So they started out with markers, and then they had a black stamp pad and a black refill ink. And then in May, they introduced a whole color line of stamp pad inks and paints. So the stamp pads come in 9 different colors. I'm going to, hold on. Sorry about that. I'm going to switch cameras here and show you. So they come in 9 different colors. There's red and orange and yellow and blue, green, violet, pink, brown, and black. I think I got them all there. And each of these colors also has a refill ink that goes with it. Now you can use the refill inks to re-ink the stamp pads, or you can use the inks on their own. The ink pads themselves are real juicy. If you're a stamper, you know you like juicy inks, so you can use them for quite a while before you need to re-ink them. But it's good to have the refill inks because I'm going to show you some things you can do with just the inks by themselves. I'm going to show you first just kind of an overview of the products that I have done. And this class was titled Lifetime Projects. These inks have the same durability and longevity of regular sublimation. So for instance, this, if I were to take this and scratch on it, scratch with my fingernails, scratch with scissors, whatever, I might scratch the blank itself. This is a plastic bag tag, but I'm not scratching off any paint. That is staying on there. So each of these, this was done with refill inks. This is a headband that was done with refill inks. This is ink, refill inks. This is a stamp pad and then filling it in with a marker. Stamp pads. This one right here was just done by mixing the ink in with a spray bottle of water, and then I put some stickers on it. These are stamp pads, a stencil. This was just sponge painted. That's the refill inks. Refill inks, stamp pads, refill inks, and stamp pads. And that's just what I've done. If this is interesting to you, you want to know more about it, or you want to be really inspired, I would encourage everybody to join the Artistry Iron-On Ink Inspirational Group. There are several affiliates and there's a design team, and they are always coming up with new ideas of how to use the products. And you can get a lot of great ideas there that go beyond what I'm going to show you today. And there's just, Artistry is coming out with more and more products all the time, and their designers and their affiliates are coming out with more and more ways to use them. So it's really, really cool, really exciting. And if you're a stamper and you are familiar with stamping techniques, you can use the same stamping techniques with the Artistry stamp pads that you can use with any other ink. So I'm going to start off by just doing some blending.
Hey,
and whenever
I'm sorry. Hey, Lycia, can you what's the link to the group?
On Facebook, it's just Artistry Iron on Ink Inspirational Group.
Thank you.
Or it might be inspiration instead of inspirational, but that's what it's called, the Iron on Ink Inspiration Group. And so when you're working with any Artistry product, your first step is always going to be to trace your blank. So I've just got plain copy paper. That's another thing. You don't need a special printer. You don't need a special paper. You just need the sublimation ink. So I'm just going to trace that blank. And if you don't have a directional design, your tracing is not going to be as important for where you orient the design, but it's still going to be important for how large you make the design, because there's no need to make something a lot bigger than you need. So we just need this area right here. And I have got, you see, I've got my table protected here with some paper, just because when you're inking, you tend to go off the paper. And so it's always good to kind of protect your work surface, either with just another piece of paper underneath your paper you're designing on, or you can use, some people use a glass mat or a silicone mat or anything like that. So I'm just going to tape this down because I'm going to use a stencil. So I'm just using washi tape. And then I've got a stencil here that I just used a little while ago. And I'm also going to tape that down because I want the stencil to stay still while I'm blending it. And then I've got some blending brushes here. If you have blending brushes that you use with your traditional inks, it's recommended that you get a separate set just for your sublimation inks, because we don't tend to wash our brushes out like we wash paint brushes. If you're using the paint, you can use the same brushes that you would use with other paints and wash them. But I have a dedicated set of brushes just for my sublimation inks and a separate set of blending brushes for my traditional inks. So I am just going to take, I've got the orange pad here. Now, if you blend inks, the first time that you put your ink on your brush, if you were to just go and blend it, you're going to get a heavy color there. So if that's what you want, that's great. But if you want a lighter touch, you need to blend off on either the edge or on a separate piece of paper before you start blending on your stencil. And these colors, it's like traditional sublimation ink. They're going to come out darker than they look and much more vivid. So this is pretty heavy right here. So it's probably going to be a really dark orange. And you have to just kind of practice with it. You'll get a feel for it as you go, kind of how dark the colors come out when you're working with them. With the paints, I always recommend that if you're trying to match some exact shades, that you maybe make a swatch test with some of the colors that you've mixed up. And whoever wins the prize is going to get a really good prize. You will have lots of creative fun with that. And the cool thing about these is, you know, every time you use them, you're going to make something unique. You can make something similar, but you'll never recreate exactly the same thing.
So Paulette has a question. She said, although you mentioned sublimation paper was not necessary, does it make a difference if you do use it?
Yes, with the markers for sure, because sublimation paper has a coating on it, and the markers tend to kind of drag on that coating. So I never have had much luck using sublimation paper with the markers. Now, I have not tried it with the ink, but it's mainly the coating that can cause some interference with your design there. I'm just going to go a little bit more than that because I'm not sure I went all the way to the edge. You don't want any white spots showing up. This one's going to be a coaster. So we just want to make sure we get in all those edges. And then you just
So are these inks safe to use with both rubber and acrylic stamps?
Yes, they are. They're just a water-based ink, but they are in sublimation form. But yes, they are safe to use with both types of stamps, and I have used them with both types of stamps. So this one's ready to go, but before I press that, I'm going to do another little technique while we're here. So let's do a bag tag. And instead of stamping with the, or blending with the stencil, I'm just going to blend onto the paper. And let's use some.
And you do need a heat press for this, correct?
You can heat press. You can use a home iron. You can use a Cricut Easy Press. I use a standard heat press, but you know, a handheld press will work as well. You just have to press longer, and it's definitely recommended that if you're trying to use a home iron or a Cricut Easy Press or something like that, that you have the Artistry project mat so you can get some really good firm pressure on it. You're going to get the best results from a regular heat press, but a home iron can be used. So it's really good for the crafters, you know, just general crafters. It's also really good for projects with kids. You can do all kinds of things with kids. And the very first time I used the markers, I did a project with my grandson, and they really like to see their artwork come alive.
And can you use coloring book pages with these?
Yes, you sure can. You would need to, the black is not going to print off unless you print it on a, you know, sublimation printer. So you would trace over, if you wanted the black lines to show, you would trace over them with like a black marker, black sublimation marker.
Yeah, one of the things I do is I will just print a coloring page on copy paper with my sublimation printer, and then color in the lines, and it looks really good.
So do you print on your copy paper with the sublimation ink, and it does well? You don't have to go over them?
Yes, yes.
So you could, so you could do the same thing. And I have also taken the markers and sketched out a design on my silhouette. Just put the pen in instead of the blade, put the marker in instead of the blade, and then color it in.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, and that makes some really cool designs. I've also used just the black marker and just sketched a design out for a beverage caddy, and it was just a black floral design and just the black on the white. It turned out really pretty. So that's some pink. We're going to put in some violet or purple. I'm trying to use a light hand with this just because you'll see it comes out pretty dark when I'm And the reason you use a pencil when you're tracing it is because the pencil marks won't transfer. If you were to use, say, a Sharpie marker, it could transfer onto your blank, onto the sides, and then pencil mark will wipe off of a blank, but a Sharpie will not. All right, so we're just going to do that like that, and then I'm going to stamp on top of this with just a regular stamp. So I'm using just a set of stamps that I got at the craft store. And I've got an acrylic block here. Just gonna put that on there. Now, when you're stamping, your image is going to be reversed. So I like to use stamps that don't have a particular orientation. Artistry does have some stamps that with some words that are reversed so that when you stamp them, they're reversed, but when you press them, they come out correctly. They've got this, and they've got a set of camping stamps. And then there's another Artistry affiliate. Her name's Betsy Burnett, and she just put out a post where she stamped a regular stamp with words onto a gel press plate and then put her paper on top of it. I haven't tried that yet, but that made her words be oriented correctly when she pressed them. So that's kind of cool, and that's an idea I want to try. All right, now we're just gonna stamp. And you know, one thing about this too is this butterfly stamp or butterfly bag tag I showed you earlier. When I originally made this, I had stamped a lot of butterflies, but after I pressed it, I thought I needed more. So I used another sheet of paper and just stamped some butterflies on it and put it on top of there. So you could just stamp your back or just transfer your background, then do your stamps later. So it just gives you some flexibility.
So does paper weight make a difference? Does better paper make a better image?
Not necessarily a better image, but when you're working with anything wet, like the paint is wet, or when you are working with maybe wetting your inks on a gel plate, you might, I use cardstock for my paint because it's heavier and it doesn't soak through and it doesn't warp the paper as much. For the wet media, I have used regular copy paper. Just this is copy paper I get in bulk at Sam's, but a little heavier weight paper. It not, like I say, not as the image. It's not that. It's just how flimsy the paper gets when you are transferring that media. I didn't stamp that one very well, but it'll still show up. Let's see. And then, but when you ask about the paper, that's a good question, because you can actually use any kind of paper. You don't have to use, copy paper like I'm using. You can use notebook paper. You can use cardstock. I've got a project over here that I'll show you that I did with a coffee filter, and that was kind of cool. So again, I just kind of look around the house and see what there is and try it out. And probably it's messy, but probably one of the most fun projects I did was when, well, two of them. I really enjoyed, I did some marbling with the paint, and I really liked that. But when I was first using the inks, I did a tie-dye, like, similar to tie-dye design, and that was on a coffee filter. And the reason I used the coffee filter is I needed it to spread out. I needed that ink to spread out, and it wouldn't have done that on regular paper. So we'll just stamp this up here. And you'll see I've got some hanging off the edge. All right, so that's another thing. But what if you don't have stamps and you want to play with these, or you've just got a few stamps? Well, you can use some other type of things to make some cool designs. One of them that I've used is bubble wrap. So let me cover these up so we don't get like that. Got black ink on there. So I'm just gonna make sure my bubble wrap is bigger than what I want to transfer onto. I'm gonna move these out of the way. And I am just going to use the ink refills for this. So let's just, not putting very much. The only thing with using the bubble wrap is you would want to put it on something that you didn't mind a little bit of the background showing through, because you're not going to get 100% coverage with the bubble wrap. You're just going to get a texture. I've got some blue on there and some pink. Let's see. Orange, blue, purple, yellow. Let's put some yellow. And I promise we're going to press these too, so you don't just see the transfers, but you see the finished product too. All right. And then I've just got a regular spray bottle of water, and I'm going to put it over here over my trash can so I don't accidentally spray my other transfers. Usually I give myself a little bit more space, but I'm trying to show y'all a lot of stuff today. So I've got a whole lot of supplies on the table. Okay. Let's just take that.
Hey, do you have to let it dry before you press it?
The water?
Just the ink itself.
No, I'm pressing it right now with it wet. You do need, you mean now, are you talking about how I'm pressing it down now or press it on the heat press? You do want to let it dry before you press it on the heat press because you don't want it to smudge. See, that one's pretty wet. So you could do that, or you could, now that I've already pressed it once, put this over here, you could press it again and get a little bit different idea. And we'll just let those dry. I've used that with the markers too. Not with the ink where it's not quite as wet. I've just kind of colored on the bubble wrap and that works well. And then you can use something you might not think of. Like I say, I like to look around the house and just see what I've got and try out different things. So let me find where I put the next thing I want to show you. I'm curious how many people have already tried the inks or the paints, either one. Here's where I put them in the spray bottle, and it takes very little ink, and you can just spray those onto your paper. That's how this one was done. You can see that's just a subtle little black background there. And well, I'm looking for my things I wanted to show you.
So I have a lot of people saying that they've used the markers. Some of them have used the paints, but they're definitely looking forward to using it now.
Yeah, this is just an embossing folder. You can ink up the embossing folder and then just stamp it onto the paper, or just put the paper in between there and rub it down with a brayer. That's what creates this. And this is actually a textured coaster. That's why it kind of is a little more splotchy in there. That one's just textured. So that's cool. And I'm going to show you, even though we're just talking about stamp pads today and inks, I'm going to show you some things I've done with the paint. So this was done with the paint. And this was done with the paint. And these were done with the paint. Well, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and start pressing some of these while I find what I'm looking for. So with the Artistry products, you're going to make what's called a sublimation sandwich. So I have some Artistry protective paper. It's a siliconized paper, and some Artistry heat tape. Now, you asked about using a regular press, not a purchase, like a standard equipment heat press, I guess. I don't know what I'm trying to say. With the like a Cricut Easy Press or a home iron or something. If you were using one of those, one thing you want to do is really tape it down well. Now, I'm using my regular clamshell heat press, so I don't need as much tape, but I would definitely recommend that if you're using a home iron or an easy press, that you really be generous with your tape. So I can kind of see my outline here. If you couldn't see it, you could, and it was super important to get it lined up, you could trace your blank again. This is a coaster that's got a plastic liner on it. So I'm going to take that off. And I'm going to place that on my outline. And this one, I do want to kind of get it in the right spot because I want my chevrons to be going straight across, not diagonal. Find the end of the heat tape there. Now I've got my printable side of the blank next to the transfer. And you need 2 layers of Artistry protective paper. I cut mine long enough so I can just fold it over. And when you put it in the press or under the iron, you want the transfer facing down so that the only thing between your transfer and your heat source is the protective paper. So I've got protective paper, design with the printed side down, blank, printable side up, and another layer of protective paper. So let's just go over here. And we're going to, and I usually put another piece of blowout paper on my press. You don't have to. It's just what I do. Okay, and we're going to press this coaster at about 60 seconds and then do a little peak test. And if it's not the color we want, we'll go another maybe 10 seconds. While that's pressing, I'm going to show you the coffee filters. Now, that is a little bit messier process. So these were done quite a while back. So you could just, you know, make transfers and save them. These have actually been sitting here for almost 3 months because I just did a whole bunch one day. But the way you do those is you just take the coffee filter and you put it like in half and then in half again and then into eighths. If you want to go further, you can go further. And then you just spray it with some water. I do this over a trash can. And just drop your ink on there. If you don't, and then you can spray it with water again and it'll spread out. Go light on the ink and then add more because you'll get some really dark colors. And then you just lay those out, let them dry, and then you can use them. Later on, we're going to see how well one that's been sitting for 3 months presses. All right, so I'm just going to do a little peak test here. Looks good. It's hot. I do have an Artistry protective mat over here. I don't use it to press on, but I do use it as a cooling surface. And let's check it out. So there. And now let's let that one cool and we'll do the same thing with our stamped one. Let's see. So this one's a bag tag. Just going to put that down. I did go ahead and trace my hole on there because sometimes you'll have a design that you don't want to end up in the hole. So I've got my hole traced. Same thing. I think I'm going to go ahead and put another little piece going across there. Just because I don't want it to shift and smudge. I tend to be pretty generous with the tape, especially if you're using something like the coffee filter or the bubble wrap that could have warped a little bit. you want to make sure it's laying flat against your blank. Okay, so protective paper, transfer, bag tag, protective paper. And the bag tags are also 60 seconds. So we'll just set that one. And I'm going to show you what I was going to show you. And I know they're here. I'll find them after we're done. But this right here, what I did is I just took a binder clip and put a piece of felt over the end of it. You know, those little, just the little clamps you get. They're just called binder clips. And that's what, and I just put the ink on it. And then I just went across my paper, and I actually had the red, the yellow, the orange, the red, yellow, orange, all that. That was one swipe across the paper. So I did that on the paper, and then I stamped on top of it. And that's kind of a cool technique. This is another one that's stamped and then colored with the markers. Has anybody got anything? We don't have a ton of time left, but have they got anything they want me to show that they've thought about? If I've got the stuff here, I'll be glad to try a different technique. I like to do a peek test first to see if it's transferred as dark as I want. This one, I did go with kind of a light hand because that's how I wanted it. So let's see. Just kind of a watery color. Blending. If you've ever used a gel press, that's another fun thing to do. And gel presses come in all different sizes. This is kind of a standard size here that a lot of people use, but it also comes in mini sizes, mini, M-I-N-I, that you can use for different things. But you can just stamp onto the gel press itself. So that was pink, and then let's use a little, I'm into pink and purple today, I guess, and it's sticky. And then you take a brayer and you rub and you can wet your paper if you want a watercolor look. You can wet this if you want it to have a more watercolor look. See how, I don't know if you can tell on the camera, see how that beads up on there? That's just a characteristic of inks. Different inks, water-based inks, dye-based inks, pigment inks, they'll all react just a little bit differently on the gel plate. So you can, if you want to, just spritz it a little bit. And you can get some cool techniques. You can take those blank spots, cover them up. I've used the markers on a gel plate and then sprayed alcohol on it and made my own watercolor transfers. Just really, it's just only limited by your ideas and your creativity. And if you're wondering if something will work, just try it out. Get you some coasters or, you know, something that you can buy in bulk and just play around with it. So let's check out how that one's going to be really dark, which might be pretty. Let's see. Let's see how this one does. And I have used these coffee filter tie-dye things, you can get second generation, probably even third generation presses out of them. It'll be a little lighter each time, but you can still do it. You can just keep pressing it, seeing what it does. Now these are really ink heavy, obviously. So we're going to that one I can just cover up and just make sure it's in there. I don't have to worry about tracing it. If I wanted to save it, I could trim some of it off, but I'm going to keep it like that so you can see what it looks like after it's pressed. And the day I was doing that, I just had coffee filters lying all around my kitchen, just drying out. Same way the other day I was painting backgrounds, so I just painted a bunch of backgrounds and you know, I'm not a painter. I'm not a great stamp artist. I just play around with it and have fun. Okay, because this one is so ink heavy, I'm going to cut a little piece of, or cut a bigger piece of protective paper.
So Nancy has a good question. She says if she uses that design that you just made with the gel pad and let the paper fully dry, could you then send it through your printer and print a design in reverse for wording and then print it?
I would be a little hesitant to do that only because the ink could come off on the roll, even though it's dry. Depends on how your printer works. Some of them work with heat and some of them work with friction. And I would be afraid that I would get some ink on my rollers of my printer. But I mean, if you have a printer you want to try, I think what you would be better off doing is do that paper like that and then print out your wording that you want to do and then put it underneath it and put it on a light box or a window and trace it. That's what I would do. But if you're not concerned, you know, if you've got a printer you want to try it with, might work. All right, so we're going to do this same way we did before. Protective paper on the bottom, printable side of the coaster up. Got a little smudge there. Let's get that off. You do need to be careful when you're handling your blanks. I have had ink on my hands before from stamping, and then when I go to touch my blank, sometimes I get a little bit of ink on there and I've had some transfer, so you just might want to, my hands kind of have ink on them today a little bit, not bad, but they do. But if you might want to do your transfers, then wash your hands and then put them on your blanks. Artistry is also coming out. It's not been released yet, but it's going to be a multi-purpose ink cleaner. Like you can, right now, this is just a prototype and they're calling it stamp cleaner, but I've used it to clean the paint off my work surface. I've used it to clean my regular stamps. It's really good stuff. So look for that to be coming out. And the one that I showed you where I had sprayed it and I had put that was a bag tag, and I had put the stickers on it. My thought on that one was that it could be a gift tag. Like if you were going to a birthday party or something, you could make that bag tag into the gift tag. And then if they wanted to peel off the happy birthday stickers later, they could and make it, you know, yeah, I love this. This is probably one of my favorite things because the colors are so beautiful. So, any more questions before we wrap up? Anything anybody wants to see again?
I think that's good. We have so many people are so inspired, so many possibilities. I do have one question. So if you do 2 presses, might you get some fading on the original painting? Yes, you might. But I mean, there's just so much that you can do with this. So
you're talking about with the tie-dye, like if we did it again?
Yeah.
Or any of them? Well, we can do it probably really quick. While you're talking, I'll do another one from that same press. I think we got time.
Yeah, we got time. And I do want to go ahead and announce the winner. So the winner of the set of stamp pads, the set of ink refills, and the set of paint is Krista Lemons. So congratulations, Krista. I just need you to send me an email, swood@conde.com, and I will go ahead and send you your winning. So congratulations.
Yeah, you're going to have fun with that. You really are. Okay, I'm going to try to put this one down just in exactly the same place so that we can see the difference between first generation and second generation.
Yeah, and that's the other good thing about what I've noticed about the Artistry is that the ink really does last a long time. So you can do double prints, and you may get a little bit of it may look a little faded on the second one, but yeah, it definitely still works for sure.
Yeah, and it's still a really good look, even though it's faded. It's just kind of more watercolory. I know we're close to the end here, so let me get this going.
And guys, don't forget, we do have all of the Artistry line. It is on sale right now. Go to that open house page and check it out.
Yes, good prices. All right, let's see if we can get this to press before we're timed out.
Lisa says she has some markers that she hasn't used and are over 2 years old. Can the ink be used to refresh them?
Haven't ever tried that. It's the same ink in them. You could try it. What I would do is put those markers with the tip down for 15 or 20 minutes and try them and see. Because I've had markers that have sat for a long time. You need to store your markers horizontally, and then before you use them, put them vertically, like in a holder or something, for like 15 minutes and see if that reactivates them. All right, down to the wire here. Let's see what this looks like. Yeah, this one, I could have probably gone 10 more seconds with that and not got quite as much fading, but that's what it looks like.
That still looks great. I mean, it would make a really nice pair. That's beautiful.
Well, and like I said, that particular transfer has been sitting for 3 months.
Awesome.
So.
Well, all right, guys. Thank you, Lycia. This was amazing, as always.
My pleasure.
And congratulations, Krista. Like I said, just email me, swood@conde.com. And thank you so much.
Yeah. Y'all enjoy the rest of the open house.
Bye.